to the first talk of Track 8, Hacking the Airwaves, a Cybersecurity Professional's Guide to SDR, Ham Radio, and Beyond by Berris Bramble. Berris here has 22 years of cybersecurity experience across oil and gas, and also the commercial real estate as well. He's a founding member of the InfraGard Technology SIG and current leader on the Technology Cross-Sector Council. He's a passionate security educator, active in local conferences, obviously, and longtime DEF CON attendee, amateur radio operator, and member of the Fort Bend Emergency Radio Operators Group with interest in space exploration and e-biking. All right. Take it away, Berris.
All right. Thank you, man. Welcome to my talk. This is my second talk at HughesCon. I did one about 2 years ago when I did a talk on amateur satellites, so that was pretty well attended. Back then, I had like 80 people come to that talk, which was surprising to me because I'm the only like non-cyber talk at HughesCon for the most part, since I focus mostly on ham radio stuff. We'll talk about this here in a minute, but we run the Ham Radio Village. Myself, this is Desmond here. So if you guys have time, you can swing by our Ham Radio Village. It's in the vendor area. So we've been doing it for about 3 years now. It was just an idea I had, and I pitched it to the conference founder, Michael Farnham, and he said that's a great idea. So we've been doing it every year since the past 3 years. And tomorrow we have testing. Today, if anybody feels brave and want to get their ham radio license, we have testing between 1 and 3 p.m. today. So you can sign up in 5 minutes, and then you could just get either your technician, which is a basic test, your general, or your extra class test. So those are the 3 levels of testing, and we'll talk about that. So this year, the first year, we've done testing, so we're pretty happy to offer that as well, too. So we're going to continue doing that in the future as well, too. Okay, so with that said, I call this one Hacking the Airwaves. You have to put hacking and everything at HughesCon. So, hey. So as far as our talk, before we start, okay, so I would like to do a little bit of trivia to see who's been around a long time here as far as computers, IT. So it's the 80s. I know some of you guys look pretty young in here, and your mom is asking why the phone line is busy. This happened to me a lot growing up. So anybody could just raise their hand. Don't say the answer, but just raise their hand if they know what's going on. Okay, most people here. All right. So we'll pick one lucky person. Who wants to give us the answer here then? Okay, go ahead, sir. Yeah, have you ever done any modeming back in the day?
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So BBSs, I used to be a hardcore BBS guy. I used to download games and videos, all the stuff you do without thinking on the internet nowadays. You used to have to scrounge through bulletin boards and know obscure protocols like Kermit and all these kind of stuff and AT commands for your modem and all this stuff. Life is much easier now, but you're always happy when you get that new modem, from when you go like your 1400 to your 56K modems and all that stuff. So this is always a fun time taking you back in these eras. So if you missed that era, you missed out on a pretty good time, and then you would have appreciated the stuff we have now a lot more. Because BBSs were a ton of fun, but they also had a ton of viruses too back then. So you had to be pretty careful back then. Okay, so as far as villages, the only village you need to come to is the Ham Radio Village. So, well, they have these other villages there if you want to come by and stop by. But like I said, we've been doing it for 3 years. We're pretty excited about our village. And like I was telling them, I hate doing like talks on my second day because we talk so much during the village, like my voice is like strained by the second day. So I woke up this morning and I was like, okay, I'm not going to say anything much today. I'm just trying to save it for the talk, But we've had a lot of people come by. We have a lot of rookies that come by that want to get into ham radio. We have some like doomsday prepper guys that come through and say, hey, I live out in a ranch. I had a guy yesterday saying, hey, I live out in a ranch. I have to walk out in the field. I have to call my mom on the cell phone. So I want to stop doing that, basically. So, and then when another guy that came up yesterday was asking about antennas and just kind of how you could discreetly put them up in your yard. A lot of us have HOAs. So we have ways of hiding those as well too. I have one in my yard that looks like a flagpole. So flagpoles are legal in our HOA. So mine is a flagpole. You just have to put a little flag on it. So, so there's ways of disguising your antenna if you want to disguise. A lot of people put them in trees, in between the leaves and stuff, so you could do that. You can make an antenna basically out of anything. So some people use their metal fencing, if you have a metal fence, and you can make that into an antenna too if you have the right, I would just say physics and science to go with it. You have to test it, and depends on the length of the wire that you run and different things, you can make your fence an antenna as well too. So just don't have the dog touching your fence after you electrify it. But yeah, it's a good way to keep your neighbors off your fence. But I talked about our ham radio testing here. It's 1 to 3 today. So stop by the village if you want to sign up, and we could get you guys tested there. So the first test is pretty easy. Literally a 12-year-old could do it, which 12-year-olds do it. So I had a mom come by yesterday, and she was talking about her kids, and they love to do walkie-talkies. And I say, yeah, it's a great time to get them into ham radio as well, too. But the first test is very easy. It doesn't take much to study for that. When you get to the general test and the extra test, it gets a lot more math and sciencey. I have my general. I haven't gone up to my extra quite yet, but I'm up to my general now. Usually when you take them, you usually try and take them like back to back if you can, because a lot of times, a lot of people come to our village, like we have the guys on the lock picking come over, and the guy, every year he tells us the same thing, like, oh man, I want to get my technician, but I don't have enough time. And I'm like, dude, you tell us this every year for the past 3 years, you know? So, but it's a simple test. If you just spend like maybe a couple hours a week studying for it, you could cram through your technician pretty easy. Yes, sir. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, they do have the test. That's a good point. Thanks for mentioning that. Okay, go ahead, sir. Yeah. 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 So they have resources there. They have ham radio prep. That's a good one. And like you said, the questions are out there on the internet, so you could just cram through them. And once you memorize enough of them and get through them, then you could just come and sit for your test. And like I said, it's good to just knock them out back to back if you can. I did my technician and general in the same day because, as you know, we never have enough time, so it's hard to come back. Like I've been trying to do my extra for 3 years, but it takes so much time to get back into it, you know, because extra get really technical, and they have this stuff called like Earth, Moon bounce. You can bounce a signal off the moon, all this crazy stuff you can do. You learn all that in your extra class. So it's pretty nice. It's a pretty cool hobby. Okay, as far as agenda, we'll talk about ham radio. Let me ask, any ham radio guys in here? Any license? Okay, wow. Okay, raise your hands again. Let me ask you your license. What license do you have? General? Okay. Technician? General? Okay. What are you? Just entry? Okay. All right, so now you guys breathe extra like me yet, so nobody stepped up to that level. But yeah, general is where you want to be because, as you'll see, you get our hobby is regulated by the FCC. So when you get your license, you get a certain amount of spectrum, as we call it, or frequencies that you can use legally. And once you get up to from technician to general, you get more frequencies, and then extra, you get a little bit more as well too in what they call the HF band. So a lot of people don't go to extra because the increase in frequencies you get is not really worth it, to be honest, for the pain and suffering of math and physics. So people just usually stick with the general, and then you can pretty much operate anywhere you want to operate as well and do all the contests you want to do, etc. No, that died off like 20 years ago. So you used to have to do Morse code for your extra tests, and that was pretty painful. So, but a lot of the old guys brag about how fast they were on Morse code. But Morse code is still a thing. You know, you turn to certain frequencies. I think it's like in 14 megahertz range. You still hear the do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And those guys are fast, man. And they just sit there keying, and that's how they talk, you know. Some guys just love Morse code. They don't talk on the radio. They just do Morse code with their friends. So it's pretty neat. So Morse code is still alive. So certain bands are reserved for Morse code only. So these are the things you learn when you get your tests, when you take your test. What bands are reserved for what? Like some of them are reserved for certain digital things like RIDI and different protocols. And then some are for voice. So you have to know that before you transmit, because if you go on the Morse code band, you're going to get in a lot of trouble stepping on people's Morse code. So those old guys can get pretty mad. So, so we'll talk about DMR. Anybody ever heard of DMR? Any of my hand guys? Okay. I have a DMR radio here. It's an Anytone. It's not a cheap radio compared to like the Baofeng that a lot of people buy. So this is one of our local repeaters here. I don't think I get any signal in this metal box, this parallel cage. But these radios are pretty good. Most people when they do DMR, and DMR is a digital mobile radio. We'll talk about that. But it's pretty much radio over the internet. So you get crystal clear sound, and you can reach all over the world as well too, pretty easy. And that's something with just this DMR radio, and then just like this, what we call a hotspot. This is all you need to take with you on vacation or wherever you go, and you can talk to your friends, buddies, anywhere in the world. And it makes it really easy. Once you have an internet connection, that's all you need. No, it doesn't require anything. Just your technician is fine. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question, though. Yeah. So there's yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of different digital modes. When I was putting this together, you had so much content, I was trying to whittle it down. So if you guys have questions, just let me know. This presentation is mostly for you. I just have the slides as a guide. So just ask me any question that you guys have. I just struggle, because even talking to people yesterday, I was like, oh, I should put that in my presentation. Man, I'll talk about this. I talk about GPS stuff later. I had this guy stop by yesterday that was a total geek on GPS. I've never ever met anybody in my life that dedicate their hobby to just GPS. And he was just like talking, and he was ripping stuff out of his bag and showing me all this stuff. I'm like, dude, for GPS? I'm like, okay. But I never met anybody that dedicated just on GPS. So that was kind of fun. I thought he'd show up today, but he didn't come out today. So we'll talk about SATCOMs. If you guys don't know, space is hot. Recently, if you don't keep up with space, I'm a kind of like space hobbyist myself, but there's a ton of technology being deployed in space as well too. So I would tell people, if you want to do cyber, if you get into a space company, that'll be really good career there. Cyber and space is a good marriage right now. So there's a lot of stuff going on in space. And then we'll talk about Meshtastic. Anybody know about Meshtastic? Okay. All right, good. Yeah, so I learned about that at DEF CON a few years ago. I see all these guys walking around and talking on these little devices and stuff. And yeah, I asked a couple of my friends, and they told me it's Meshtastic. And I finally bought some devices this year and started playing with them. And it's pretty cool technology if you haven't played with it. So we'll talk briefly about that. But anything we talk about here, feel free to stop by our village if you guys want to dive a little deeper. We have all these devices at our village if you want to come and chat. So most of the stuff I'll cover here is kind of high level to get you guys kind of educated and interested, and then you can stop by the village and we can do some deep dives there as well too. And then we'll just talk about some radio frequency hacking stuff that's happened recently as well too. Okay, so this is my meme slide. So I dug all these things up. Let's start from the bottom. Anybody know what show this is? Okay, Gilligan's Island. I forgot I had a pointer. So Gilligan's Island. So you can see this guy said, what's his name of Gilligan? This is Skipper and the professor. Okay, you guys are good. All right. So anybody know what QSL means in ham radio lingo? Yeah, good contact, I acknowledge. In ham radio, there's a lot of short ways to say things, because sometimes you have a lot of static, a lot of interference. So you can say, oh yeah, I got it, Jim, thank you, sir. So sometimes you just say like QSL, message received, basically. So having short communication is a kind of common trait in ham radio. So this guy is doing some contesting. Anybody know what 73s mean? Yeah, bye. They don't really have an origin for it, but usually at the end of your conversation, you say 73s, and then that means goodbye. So all this is part of the lingo that you learn when you take your test as well too. And of course, you can do contesting. Anybody ever did any contesting in here? No? Yeah, contesting is when you go on the radio. They had one a couple weeks ago, but it mostly happened on the higher bands, is what they call HF, the guys with the big antennas. And then they reach around the world. And sometimes they had one in Texas. They call it a Texas QSO party, and it's QSO. I'll tell you guys what that means in a minute. But you have to try and work all the cities in Texas and then put them in your logbook. And the person with the most QSOs mean contacts. person that you connected with on the radio, they consider that QSO. So you take down the call sign. Mine is KF5 HSH. So you take down their call sign and their location or grid square, and then you log that in your book, and then you submit that to whoever's doing the contest, and whoever has the highest score wins, basically. So that's one example of contesting, and people love that stuff. You know, when the contest is on, your radio is just lighting up all weekend. And then, of course, you have some other means here of HTs. You have your handheld radio, which is what most people buy when they get into the hobby. So these are pretty simple. People love the Baofangs. Those are like $20, $40 radios. Like I said, this one's about like $400 for this one, because this one's like built like a tank, and it has a lot more capabilities in it as well. So you could do regular analog stuff, like a regular radio, but you could also do digital with DMR. So this kills two birds with one stone with this radio. But a lot of us, like higher end hands, I would say, like those that do like a lot of geeky stuff, like these type of radios. So these kind of guys, like I'll talk about AMSAT, amateur satellite. This radio does satellite work as well too. So a lot of the satellite guys have this radio too, because you could do satellite contacts with this radio pretty easy. So you actually have a feature that you could scan for satellites when the pass is coming over, as they say, and it'll tell you which satellite is coming in range and what time. So you could use the radio to connect with it. So that's why this radio is so expensive. But that's still not the most expensive. I have a Kenwood radio that does a lot more than that, and that one was like $700 for that one. So it does a whole bunch of stuff. So as far as we talked about QSOs, this one here, this one is a common one here. You know, you always like when you go hiking or in the backwoods and people say, oh, my cell phone doesn't work, you know. So us ham guys, we don't take our cell phone, we take our radios with us, you know. So that's a good use. I was explaining to somebody as well that when you're going hiking or if you're going off into the wilderness, having a ham radio is a good place, a good thing to have. Some people have like what they call backpack radios as well too. So in addition to just having an HT, sometimes people have like those car units, the mobile units, and they make it into like a backpack rig with a portable battery. Some people geek out and have a solar panel on the back as they hike to keep some of the batteries charged, and then they have their antennas sticking up like they were in the army. I was joking with one of my army friends earlier today, and he said the radio guy is the first guy to get shot in the army. So that was pretty funny. But a lot of people do all those kind of things. So these are kind of good things you can do when you go out. You know, the HT, it has a limited range unless you connect to what they call a repeater. But if you have a bigger radio with more watts, you know, like Vader here talking about, a HT usually limited to 5 watts. That's like the FCC regulation. It's 5 watts. The Baofangs go to like 7 or 8 watts, which is illegal in the U.S. But these are Chinese radios, so China don't care about our rules. So that's why I always caution people when they buy Baofangs. They're pretty much unlocked, as what we call them. So you could pretty much transmit on any frequency, which is illegal as well too. So a lot of people, they get into these Baofangs and they get onto like airport frequencies and all this kind of stuff, and they try and transmit or press the button to kind of disrupt this signal. But that will get you in a lot of trouble doing that. One of the guys at our ham radio village, he actually hunts down people that cause signal interference. So that's one of the things that he does. So some of these FCC guys have like vans with all these crazy antennas for direction finding. So they could find people with that. When you do a lot of what we call spurious transmissions, they could track you down with these special vans and all these antennas with direction finding capabilities. So a lot of things into a ham radio, but the main thing is just staying compliant. So when you have these radios from overseas, just remember they're based on their overseas rules. They don't apply to ours. So just keep that in mind. And I think that's about it. As far as antennas, you know, as far as reaching out to contact somebody, your antenna height and your wattage or your power are the two biggest things that will get you out far. So that's why you all see people in the country that have these big antennas up on these 200, 300, 400-foot towers. Those are the guys that reach very far. So like in contesting, you all hear guys, like they have a lot of static. Those are the guys with the small antennas. And then you hear the guys with the big antennas with this like crystal clear voice, and then just blowing everybody away. So wattage and height is your friend when it comes to reaching far. Yes, SWR. Yes. Do you want to say anything about SWR?
Yeah.
So this is.
Wave ratio.
Mm-hmm.
How in tune your antenna is to what frequency you're trying to broadcast or transmit or receive on.
Yeah. So when you send power down your antenna, there's a reflected signal that comes back. And you really want to have it close to 1-to-1 is what they say, and maybe 2-to-1 is best. 1-to-1 is very rare, but 2-to-1, as they say, is very, very good. And people usually have an antenna analyzer that they use. Like if you come by our village, we have this big T-shaped antenna that you can see. And our guy yesterday, he spent like 20 minutes, what they call tuning it for a certain band, because you have to adjust the length of the antenna arms we were trying to do 20 meters, which is 14 megahertz. And you were trying to tune it to that, because usually that's active during the day. These are things that you know when you take your test. Like 20 meters active during the day, 40 meters active during the night, because of how the signal bounces over the Earth. As far as the ionosphere and different levels of the Earth as well, too. So you learn all this stuff in ham radio. But he spent like 20 minutes tuning this antenna, and then he fired up his radio, and being the GRB with all the lights and everything, all he saw was noise on his what we call his waterfall. So everything was like green. It was supposed to be blue when you don't have interference, but he couldn't hear anything because he had so much interference in the GRB with the lights, the building, the metal, everything, and we couldn't hear anything on HF. So these are the things that you learn. Okay, just quick facts. Anybody been to DEF CON before? Okay, good bit of hands. If you go to DEF CON, there's a lot of people that are hams at DEF CON or cybersecurity conferences. So DEF CON always has like a secret ham radio frequency that a lot of people use. And if you don't know who to ask, you won't know what frequency they're on. So there's always people, you'll see them with the antennas out their backpacks and HTs on their hips and stuff like that, but a lot of people at DEF CON are hams. So therefore, a lot of cyber people are hams as well too, because they kind of very, very interesting as far as crossing over, because the same type of people that like security likes tinkering with radios as well too. So you can see the different things here. And of course with radio, if you like to be digital and don't want to do all the static and the analog stuff, you can just stick with the digital stuff like the open spot and then just do IP, what we call IP over radio. Or radio over IP is what they call it. So there's plenty of different aspects of ham radio, just like there is for cybersecurity. Anybody seen this before? Yeah, you have to know this if you take your test. Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. Okay, good to know. I did not know that. Conham.org. Okay. Yeah, thanks for that tip. Yeah, there's a lot of things, and just like finding out things today, you have to know the right people to ask to know what's going on sometimes. So thanks for sharing that. So this is the band plan that you have to know this inside and out for your test. So this looks very confusing, but once you become a ham, all this stuff makes sense. But it's basically telling you which ones are voice frequencies, which one is Morse code, which one are digital frequencies. And it also, most importantly, is telling you the range of the band. Like, what was I talking about, 40 meters? You can see it goes from 7 megahertz all the way to 7.3 megahertz. So that's how small that window is for 40 meters. And then 20 meters is here. It goes from 14 megahertz all the way up to 14.35. So you can see this one has a little more room. But you have to stay within this range to be legal here. If you go outside of that range, you're illegal at that point. So you don't want to go too close as well, too, because sometimes if you get too close to the end, sometimes you might cross over as well, too, depending on how much power you're using as well. So this is the band plan from the FCC, and it shows all our frequencies and what all the different frequencies are used for as well, too. So this is very, very important. And we have copies of this at our village as well if you want to swing by, but they have them online everywhere as well, too. Okay. Anybody know their phonetic alphabet? Okay. Are you guys ex-military or just ex-military? What are you? It's just a hobby? Yeah. So you just learned it on your own? Okay. Yeah. So this is the phonetic alphabet. A lot of military folks use it, of course. We in the ham world live by it as well, too. Usually when we say our call sign to someone in the radio, it's Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Hotel, Sierra Hotel is mine. So we always use phonetics when we're doing things on the radio as well too, because you never know how just because you're hearing somebody clearly on your end doesn't mean that they're hearing you clearly on the other end as well too. Just so keep that in mind. You know, it's not like a cell phone. So because they might be further away, they might have more like crappier gear than you have. Like their antenna might be smaller or whatever, so they might be coming weak on their end but powerful on your end because you have a better antenna or whatever. So just keep that in mind. So phonetics is the way to go. And you can see all of them here. I got my wife to memorize all these. So I quizzed her like a whole weekend, and now she knows all of her phonetics now. And so now she just randomly say, hey, quiz me. And then I just draw some letters, and then she gets all of them now. We talked about band plan, call signs, of course. Everybody watch Top Gun. So not that type of call sign, but but everybody gets a call sign when you get registered with the FCC, and your call sign is random when you get it, semi-random. Like mine, as you'll see in my other slide, this one has a 5 in it. 5 usually means Texas. So usually when you hear somebody's call sign, you could tell where they got their license. Not really where they are physically, but where they got their license. Like I'm from the Caribbean there, the Virgin Islands originally, and down there it's 2. Anybody with a 2 call, which is very rare, anybody with a 2 call is down in the Caribbean area. So I rarely hear anybody with a 2 call sign. So we talked about that, contesting, Hamfest. Anybody know what a Hamfest is? Okay, anybody been to the local Hamfest we have here? We have one called Bevark Hamfest. Brother Charlie? Okay. Do you know what a Hamfest is? Sir? Okay, which one have you been to? Oh, Dayton. Okay. You want to say just briefly what a Hamfest is? Yeah, so you have like legitimate vendors there, like that actually sell stuff. So like Anytone and Uniden and those vendors will be there. But there'll be a lot of regular people selling gear. So it'll be old gear and new gear and very, very, very old gear as well too. Like you could pick up like some World War II radios. If you're into that kind of stuff, you could pick all that stuff up at a swap meet as well. So I have some people that collect like vintage gear, like use like vacuum tubes and all that stuff back in the day, and you could get all that at Hamfest. And then Denton is one of the largest ones in Texas. I think that one's coming up. Ohio. What's the one in Texas that's coming up? Is it Belton? Belton, I think it is. Yeah. So they have one coming up in Texas pretty soon. But that's where you could go and collect some cheap gear as well, because you could go there and haggle with people and buy stuff. I bought 2 of my radios at Hamfest. I mean, you talk the guy down for like $100 and you get a good deal, So I got 2 of my radios at Hamfest. HT, what is an HT? Handy talkie. So like a walkie-talkie. So this is a HT or a handy talkie. So anybody say, hey, where's my HT? This is your HT here. So handy talkie. And if you have besides a handy talkie, if you have like one of these, they just call them like a rig. I have my rig at home, or this is my rig. That's usually how people refer to them. Is just this is called like a base station. This is what you have at home. Then you have a mobile radio, which is what you have in your car. But people just call those rigs. If it's not an HT, they just call them rigs in general. So just to teach you guys some of the lingo. We talked about QSO. QSO is making a contact. QSL is pretty much acknowledge. QSL. So they have, just like they have this phonetic alphabet, they have a QSO list of definitions as well too. So they have one that's like QRM, which means like static. I have a lot of static. Waterfall is this. This is what my friend was looking at to see static. Here is good. Blue means it's pretty clear. His one was all green. So green means you have a lot of noise, a very noisy signal coming in. So this is a waterfall. Several radios have it. I don't have any radios with waterfall. Those are usually more costly, like over $1,000 for those type of radios, but they're very handy when you're doing a lot of HF work. They're pretty handy to see where the noise is, so you can avoid the noise as well too. And field day. Anybody ever been to a field day? Which one have you been to? Okay. Hawaii. Okay. Yeah. So field day, a lot of clubs, like they have ham clubs here in the Houston area. Like I have one called Bevark, Brazos Valley Amateur Radio Club. which is down in like the Sugar Land, Missouri City type area. Then you have one called CARS, Katy area, well, Katy Amateur Radio Club as well. So they have them in different parts of Houston, and then they do their own what they call field day. And field day is kind of a contest as well too. So it's nationwide, and it's put on by what they call it ARRL, which is kind of the body that kind of governs ham radio. So what you do on that day is that you run your radio without any regular power. You have to use like portable power to run your radios. So you have to use generators or solar or anything besides regular plug-in power. And then you contest. You try and make as many contacts as you can for that weekend. They go from like Saturday at noon to like Sunday at noon. And you have to make as many contacts. And usually the club, they have a limited amount of radios that you can use. Like our club usually have like 5 or 10 radios. And then some clubs only have 1 radio or 2 radios, depending on their size. And then you contest all weekend, and whoever has the most QSOs at the end of the weekend wins. And our BVOC usually comes in the top 5 pretty much consistently over the past few years. So that's kind of like field day. So it's a good day to visit your local ham radio club. And there's a ton of people that come through. And they usually have sometimes the press comes through. We had the sheriff come through one time. I think we had the mayor come through one time. And then the sheriff was funny because he came in. We were at this park, and he came in with his helicopter. And the helicopter was like circling, and then suddenly he just like landed in the field and like blew all our stuff around. So he landed his helicopter in the field, and he came out, and he came in and said hello to everybody and talked and everything, and then he just took off on his helicopter, and everybody went outside and fixed their stuff. So, but yeah, that was not nice of him to land his helicopter next to our antennas. But it was nice of him to stop by. Okay, so this is, I'm sure my hands in here have seen this before, right? Yeah. So this is what I'm telling you about with the 5. You can see what the 5 covers here. So if you have a call sign, usually it's the 3rd letter. So mine is KF5, so it's usually the 3rd letter that has the number. So you could tell where somebody got their call sign or their ticket, as we say. When they get their license, we call it a ticket. So you can see the 06 is pretty popular on the radio. A lot of West Coast people are on the radio. You can see 7, 4. So the most people I hear are 5s and 6s are the most I hear on the radio. But these are for the whole U.S., these are the different ones. You can see the one I was talking about in the Virgin Islands where I'm from. It's 2, KP2. Puerto Rico is KP4. And then you have some others over here for Alaska and Hawaii, etc. So those are 6 over there as well. So that's what that means in your call sign there. And at the end of your call sign, like mine is HSH, that's the random part that you get. So that could be, if you when people come to the village and they have their ticket, you just ask them what their call sign is. Like mine is HSH. Like what's your call sign, sir? Yeah. What's SWE? Okay. So I could tell that he got his call sign after me, just by the last 3 letters in his, because usually they're kind of alphabetical, like H. Like me and my little brother took our tickets the same time, and his own is HSG, and mine is HSH. So when it got to the FCC, for some reason we got ours together, and I don't know how that happened. That's so random, because a lot of people just submit those to the FCC. So we're back to back there. So you can always tell when somebody got their ticket and compared to yours by what that letter is, what that H, that letter after the 5 is. It'll tell you when they have, at least if they're newer or older than you. So I've had my ticket over 10 years. Your ticket is good for 10 years, and then you have to renew. Testing is about $15, so it's dirt cheap. And like I said, it lasts about 10 years. So I had to renew at least once a few years ago. And also let me know if you guys have any questions as we go along as well too. This is just a generic slide because people always ask when they come to our village, hey, what can I listen to? What can I talk to? Say that again? Correct. That's the thing. Listening is not illegal. You can listen to anything, anywhere. Like I have this handy police scanner that I have running all the time at home. This thing never turns off at my house. I have it plugged into power, and I listen to police, ambulance, airports, airplanes, all kind of things on this scanner. This is a Uniden scanner. So if you guys want to check it out, I'll have it up here, but it'll also be at our village here. This is it. These usually run about $600-700 for these things, but they're like the most fun you could have for $600 or $700. So you'd be up late and just hear like, oh, he ran in the back. And then you're like, okay, what's going on? And you listen to the cops saying what clothes he's wearing. Oh, he's in this color jacket, this and that, and then he went around the side, and it's like so fun just to listen to the actual people talking on the radio, you know. So it's pretty good if you, especially like after midnight, all the debauchery that goes on in Houston. Yeah, it's like so. I'm like, man, I live in this city. I'm not gonna go out at night again, you know. So you're hearing all these apartments. Okay, like I'm not going there. You know, I mean, it's so funny just to hear on the scanner, man. But if you get a scanner, it's like one of the most fun things you could buy. It's an investment. Some of them are cheaper than this, but I wanted one with color and all that stuff. But they're a ton of fun. They have databases already loaded in them for all the cities. They come with it. Yeah, it has its own software, and you pick what county or state. You can narrow it down to your city, to the county, to the state, to the whole nation, depending on what you want to listen to. But it also depends on how much memory you have, because these things take a lot of memory. So I could only, like Harris County alone is so big, because so many things that operate in Harris County. Like you could hear like traffic from like, if like school buses have radios, if shopping malls, I've heard shopping malls have radios, I've heard them. So you'll be surprised all the radios you can pick up. So it's pretty fun. So if you want to have a good time, a scanner is the way to go. And Black Friday is coming up, so you might get a good deal. So airport towers, I hear Hobby a lot on my radios. GMRS, anybody want to know what GMRS is? No. Yeah, it's like the stuff you buy in Academy, right? You want to say, hey, I want some walkie-talkie to talk to my kids on a picnic. These are the stuff you buy, the GMRS and FRS. GMRS is Global Mobile Radio Service, and FRS is Family Radio Service. So you could use both of these without a license. Yes, if you go over a certain wattage only. So GMRS requires a license only if you go over a certain wattage. So otherwise, you can use it just fine. So people always say that, but it's the wattage that you have to look out for. I think it's over 1.5 watts, you need a license. And the license lasts a long time. I used to have mine, and I let it expire, because once you have a ham radio, you don't care. Ham radio license, then it kind of supersedes that. Well, I had that, but it's pretty cheap. You said you guys said what, $10 for the GMRS license? Yeah, I think it was about $10. Okay. But these are all the different things you can listen to. And of course, all the stuff on your band plan, you can listen to that. But like I said, listening is not illegal. So you can listen to anything you want. Okay, we talked about DMR. So these are the kind of gold standard when it comes to DMR radio. They have other radios that do DMR as well. But this is the gold standard. These are like built like a tank, and they're pretty tight, as we say, as far as tolerances. They don't like bleed into other frequencies. Like if you have it on a certain frequency and you transmit, it doesn't bleed over to other frequencies, because these are pretty well built as far as the internals. So this is the open spot. This guy's a pretty good guy. If you're new into ham radio, want to learn about ham radio, I listen to this guy quite often. This is the channel, Ham Radio 2.0. And he lives in Texas. I actually seen him at a few ham fests locally here, and I seen him with his video gear and stuff walking around. So I said hello to him a few times. But once again, this is internet, radio over the internet. So DMR is kind of complicated, to be honest, to set up. I got into it a couple of years ago, and I actually had to have help from one of my buddies just to get my frequency, what they call like a code plug, loaded into your radio, because it gets pretty complicated. You have to load up like all these contacts into your radio, and that's how you know who's calling you or talking on the radio. As far as the call signs, because they have a database of call signs that you have to load into your radio, and then you have to load up all the frequencies and what they call talk groups, which are all like meeting rooms. You have to load all that up into your radio as well too. So it gets a little complicated to get started, but once you get started, it's like set it and forget it. Like since I've done that, I haven't touched my radio again since that. Yeah, well, Pi-Star is kind of like a different network. They have different digital networks. They have DMR, you mentioned D-Star. They have Fusion, Yaesu Fusion. I think that's it. Yeah, and you need different radios to do them, unfortunately. That's the That's the bad part. Like this one does DMR. It doesn't do anything else. But with the open spot, which is why people buy open spots, this does all of them. So even if you have a DMR radio, you can still do Yaesu Fusion on here, and you can do D-Star on here. You can do cross platform with this. So that's why people buy just a radio that they want, and then just one of these, and it covers everything. So that takes care of that. So you don't have to go and buy a Yaesu radio or a Kenwood radio and all that kind of stuff. So that's the trick there, is that. And the open spot is pretty easy to configure as well too. So the thing with the DMR is that once you have this set up in here, you have to get a DMR ID. If you guys want to learn about it, you could come to the village. But you have to sign up for a DMR ID, which takes like 24 hours to get, and then you have to put that in here. So when you transmit on the network, it knows who you are. It knows that you're an authorized DMR user by having that ID. So you have to get that first. Even though you have a call sign, you need that ID. And then after that, you just set up a frequency on here to talk to this, because it's all over radio. So mine is like 443, 725. And then when I key up here, it'll talk to this radio, this open spot. And whatever I have configured, it'll talk to that, whatever talk group or whatever I'm in at that time. But usually when you do that, you put your radio on low power, because you're just going from here to here. You don't put it on high power to connect to your open spot. So these are the things you learn in ham radio. You don't want to cause unnecessary interference. So these are the things that you learn in ham radio, is that you don't want to, you just use as much power as you need to do what you need to do. So low power is good in your house, and you can hit this anywhere in your house. So I usually keep mine downstairs and my radio's upstairs, and then I use it that way. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, go ahead quick. Yeah. Yeah, I know I'm getting short on time, but you gotta swing by to take a picture of that. You got one of those? Okay.
Let me do the absolutely.
Yeah.
There's software out there to replace like SDR Sharp or SDR Plus, whichever you're using. GU Radio, they have a really amazing scanner plug-in you can just put in there, put where you are, and it can go, and it just was everything for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you want to learn more, just come by the village, and we'll talk about that. So I'll go ahead and flip through some of these here. Like I said, my slides were just kind of just to help guide us, so don't feel bad if we don't get through all the slides. We kind of had a good conversation here, which is what I wanted to do. So we talked about satellites. These are all the technologies in satellites now. You don't have to worry about them, but I just want to show you guys all the technology they're doing to go from satellite to ground stations, and also satellite to satellite communications. It's pretty big too. So they've been experimenting with lasers, sharks with lasers. So they've been experimenting with lasers from satellite to transfer information, but also to do like status checks and all that kind of stuff as well too. And of course we have amateur satellite. There's a lot of amateur satellites in space that you can talk to actually. So you could actually do that as well. It's called AMSAT. There's a group here in Houston. I'm part of that group, but they're a pretty active group that do satellite communications as well too. So if you want to learn about that, just stop by the village as well too. Last year I had one of their balloons that they used to send up when they could talk to their balloons. They actually have balloons that go around the world. Like they release them from a park here in Houston, and they'll circumnavigate the whole world as well too. And you could track them with the tracker that they put on the balloon. Yeah, correct. And then you have amateur radio on the space station. Yeah. So they actually have hams on the space station here that'll talk to you. They actually talk to schools a lot. When they're passing over, they schedule time to talk to school children as well. They set up a ham radio in the classroom, and then you could talk to an astronaut. So pretty cool. So all these are pieces of the hobby here. They have HackaSat as well. They had a satellite that they put up in space just for hacking. They had this at DEF CON like 2 years ago. And then this was a contest to hack the satellite. And then whatever they learned here, they use it to improve satellites. Okay, I know somebody's taking a quick picture. Okay. This is the SDR. This is what we were just talking about. If you guys want to get into software-defined radio, this is your go-to kit here. So you have different versions. I think on version 4 now. I think. Yeah, but you get this. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the improvements either. I think it's just to make more money. But they have special software you can get. A lot of this stuff is on GitHub, but you can look them up. Okay, I'm at time here, so I'm just gonna run through some of these. Meshtastic we talked about. If you guys want to learn about that, that's peer-to-peer communication. We have at some devices at the village. And these are some of the devices, how they work. Some of them look like the old school Blackberries. And then some of them look like this, that don't look like anything. And then you have repeaters that you can set up as well too. Since it's peer-to-peer, you can set that up as well. We'll skip the GPS stuff. And this is my last slide, I think. Almost, yeah. I have 2 more slides quick. So, I love that movie. But, I don't know if you guys saw this in the news. I know my time's up, so I'll take 2 more minutes to go through my last slides. But this was hilarious. Have you guys seen this in the news? Okay. So, this is a sim farm. So, anybody know why anybody would have a sim farm? If you walk in and saw a sim farm in your kid's bedroom, would you be worried? Okay. So what would you do with a sim farm? Yeah, make money, right? Yeah, scams. It's all about scams. So the reason why this got crazy on the news, because this happened at the same time when they had the United Nations meeting. So they thought they were trying to jam all the cell towers in New York. This was in New York. So they thought they were going to use this huge farm to jam all the cell towers in New York and disrupt the United Nations meeting. But it was just humble everyday guys trying to make a buck. So they were doing scam calls and scam texts. They could send, the news article said that they could send a text to every home in the U.S. in like 12 minutes. Yeah, it was ridiculous. And then they had all these SIM card wrappers. Imagine being the agent selling all this stuff. But they had all these SIM card wrappers. That's a trigger on FBI probe if you do that. But this was funny here. So that's why you got to be careful with the news. They were saying, oh, this is for the United Nations, and people, all the cyber guys are like, oh, no, those are guys that are just trying to make a buck, you know? But they're trying to sensationalize this on the news. And then the last thing here, I just want to show off some devices. This is the newest one. Anybody heard of this? The Wi-Fi pineapple pager? Okay, they announced this at DEF CON this year. And then you could do pre-orders. They're about $300. They had like a founder's edition, which was only 100 copies. And they actually had this, the guy named Darren Kitchen, he's the one that runs HackFried, he was there. So they had a couple of these that you could actually play with. So one of the guys let me play with it, like, hey, as long as you don't move from the spot, you can play with it. So they have all the Wi-Fi pineapple payloads on this pager. And it actually looks like a pager. It's small like a pager, it has a clip, you can put it on your belt, and you can walk around hacking people with just a pager on your hip. So of course I ordered one. So, mine, the FCC has to approve it, so it comes out like November or December. It's pending FCC approval, they said. But this is the new, the screen is really good too. It's color and it's really sharp. And you can load all kind of payloads, and it has a lot of attachment points on the backs for future stuff as well. So I know you guys, and this came out at DEF CON last year, this Free Willy. I have one up here as well. It was a prototype. Last year, it was pretty much useless last year. But they had it like half off, but they're still working on the firmware for this thing. So it's supposed to be like a flipper. Yeah, it's supposed to be like a flipper on steroids, this Free Willy. And then that's about it for me. So thank you for your time, and thanks for the conversation and all the questions. If you have more questions, we'll be at the village, and we'll be happy to talk to you for hours and hours at the village. Okay, thank you so much.